good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you very much for joining us for this live tasting for the Crus Bourgeois. We're actually in the heart of Bordeaux. We're at the Chez Briot, which is a caviste, a wine shop in the very centre of Bordeaux, which is quite appropriate because the original name of Crus Bourgeois comes from the notion of bourg, or town, from the people who are in the town of Bordeaux. So we're going back in history to the very origins of the Crus Bourgeois. Just a reminder for those of you that aren't familiar, Crus Bourgeois is a classification that is redone every vintage. It includes wines from all 8 appellations within the Médoc region of Bordeaux. And we have winemakers representing chateaux from 7 different chateaux within the Crus Bourgeois appellation. Now you have, hopefully with you, as well as the wines already open, I hope that we'll be tasting together, you also have the information booklet that goes into details of all the individual chateaux, all the individual wines that we'll be tasting from the 2012 vintage. So we won't go into too much technical detail about the wines, unless, of course, you want us to, because you have the possibility to ask questions about the various properties or the various subjects that come up in conversation if you have specific questions that you'd like to address to any of the winemakers that are here with us this evening here, although it's during the day with you. So I'd like to start off with just introducing what Crus Bourgeois are, what the Crus Bourgeois classification is, and I'd like to ask Armel, if you'd be kind enough, from Château du Taillon to start, because Armel is on the Crus Bourgeois committee that helps manage this classification. Armel.
So hello, good afternoon or good morning. The Crus Bourgeois family, it's a group of people which are original from the Médoc region and which have the willing to make quality. They are together in order to promote the quality of their wine coming from the Médoc. We represent, as you said, 8 appellations, and we are organized in this group where we are 251 this year, and that's our philosophy, and the target is to say that we make wine with a quality, a certification of quality with a good price. That's the most important, because Bordeaux makes quality wine, but it's not always the case that all of them are not affordable, and we think that our willing is to be wine you can get for quality at a good price. That's the main target for us, and that's why we are all together. And we are, as I said, 250 people, and we represent different appellations. We have different quality, and that's the charm of the Médoc, is to find what you feel like having with some fruity wine, some very
more powerful wines. Yeah, there's a range. I think that's very exciting, because within the 400 people that apply for the Crus Bourgeois, not everybody gets it. So as you said, in the last classification, which was 2015, last year, which was the 2013 vintage, that's also worth bearing in mind. The wines currently are classified at the point of coming to market. So the vintage 2015 was bottled last year, 2015. So it was judged and awarded. And you say only 251 properties out of the almost 400 that applied actually got the qualification for a Crus Bourgeois. So it's a very selective, as you say, very quality-driven and excellent value for money. That's the objective, is to make a quality wine at value for money. So that's what we're hoping to share with you today through these 7 different properties. The theme is Women in Wine. You all have noticed that we have Pierre with us, perhaps, who is working with his mother in his property. So he's a very brave man, surrounded by women here this evening in Bordeaux. But it's okay. It's okay. We'll let you off. The theme is Women in Wine. Why? We thought it's quite interesting to show, and we'll talk about this evolution of women in wine. Perhaps for many people, Bordeaux is considered very traditional, and it is traditional. It is historic, but it's no longer surprising to see women at the helm, whether they're winemakers, whether they're agricultural managers, whether they're marketeers, or whether they're owners of various properties within the Médoc. So we thought it was an interesting take. It's also because women consumers are a very important part of the market. So we can look at perhaps some of the ways that we can appeal to this important part of the market. So what I'm going to do is ask everybody to present a little bit about their property, and then we'll taste the wines together. And I'd like to start with Magali. So what we have is we have 7 different appellations here this evening of the 8 appellations that are in the Médoc. And Magali Guillon is the winemaker at Château-la-Cardonne. And Château-la-Cardonne is in the Médoc, so the most northerly of all the appellation. You have a very specific way of marketing your wine, in that you only market it when you feel it's ready for drinking.
Exactly. In fact, in the 1990s, the owner thought it was shame that most of his wine were drunk too soon after bottling and not really ready to drink. So it's no use to work hard in the vineyard first and in the cellar afterwards if your wines are not drunk at the right time to be at their best. So he decided to build a very large underground cellar to age the wines and to release them only when they were ready. That's to say that on the American market at the moment, you can only find the 2009 Château-la-Cardonne.
Okay.
Because it's the vintage that is good at the moment.
Ready for drinking now.
Yes.
Ready for drinking now. When you make the wines, because you're the winemaker, what is your objective? How long do you see your wines? Take the 2009, for example. You can start drinking it now. How long will it last for?
Well, 2009 is an excellent vintage, yes. So it's not the average. Mm. I would like to make a 2009 every year, but sure. It's not the same. For 2009, I think it's very good right now, and it's going to be also very good during 8 to 10 years at least.
Okay, that's interesting.
But there are less and less people who have a cellar.
The possibility to age their wine at home.
At home. So it's important to sell the wines. The wines you can find in the wine shop at the corner are the wines that can be drunk. Well,
you can buy them and drink them at night.
Drink them at night, exactly.
Okay. Now we're going to taste the 2012. How do you feel the potential for aging? When should we start drinking the 2012?
Well, in fact, the 2012 is maybe an exception. I mean, it's really very good at the moment. Probably in 1 or 2 years, it's going to close up a little.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's quite usual. Mm-hmm. And probably it's going to reopen in 4 years or 5 years from now. But at the moment, it's really
it's a
very
good window
fruity.
of opportunity.
Exactly.
So let's taste the wine. So if you'd like to taste the wine at home with us. What is the characteristic of Château-la-Cardonne? What are you looking for? How do you...
Well, the important thing is I make the wines I like.
Okay.
And I like some very fruity, a bit flashy wines, but always with elegance and complexity. Mm-hmm. And when the complexity, you have it when the wines get older. So it has to lie a few years in the cellar before getting this complexity.
So how would you describe the wine now, the 2012 that we're tasting?
So right now it's very fresh and very fruity. It's a wine that you can enjoy with friends at night, very simply. It's not a wine too complicated.
Okay.
I mean, the important thing in wine, yes, it's important to have a description if you are interested in the different tastes. But the main thing for me is you like it or not.
All right. And if you like it, you drink it. Yeah?
Yes,
Very
exactly.
nice, very pleasant. It's very pleasant. The 2012s in general are perceived as being very, very fruit forward, quite fruity wines, I think.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
and I think
very
would be
soft
interesting.
tannins and very charming wines.
So very approachable. So perhaps would they be ready for drinking earlier than the 2009s were? Do you think?
Yes,
Or-
probably.
yeah.
Yes,
Maybe a bit
there are
more
less
accessible.
tannins than the
Okay.
2009. So probably they won't age as long as 2009, but they are very enjoyable right
Okay.
now.
Now you're a woman winemaker. It's more and more common, as we said now, to have women in winemaking. Do you think it gives you a different approach to winemaking, being a woman winemaker?
Well, not especially.
No.
Well, in fact, it's very common nowadays.
It
but
is.
when I started many years ago, it was yeah. There were not so many female winemakers, and I started at Château Lynchbage with Jean-Michel Caz, and I think he was among the first
To take a woman winemaker
take-
on.
yes,
and
exactly.
It's a very, very well-known, very famous property in Bordeaux. So, super. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Armel, so we'll come back to you, Armel. Armel, your property, Château du Taillon, is in the Haut-Médoc appellation, very close to Bordeaux.
South of the Médoc, yes.
In the south of the Médoc. And you have a particularity in that your chateau has a very open door policy, very open to visitors. Explain a little bit how that works and what you do.
I have the chance to run a winery which is familiar first, and then which has a very nice. It's a very nice place with an old chateau of the 18th century and an old cellars and everything. So I used to say that I really have the history of Bordeaux, and this is why the first thing I did when I took after my father was to open the winery to visitors and to share the place where I have been where I'm living, and these things came from the study I did in California, where they have been they do the wine and tourism for years and years, and so for me it was just important to open the winery and to welcome people. And now I am at the stage, after 10 years, I'm at a stage where I think it's almost a service to give to the visitors, because we do in Bordeaux, we export a lot of our wine,
yes,
and we are very proud to export our wine all over the world, especially in the United States too. But when the people come to Bordeaux, they are, we need to receive them, and they have le droit, I don't know how you say that, the
right,
the
yes,
right to be received in the winery, where they can buy the wine and where they can visit because they have bought the wine in their country. So for me it's really important, and that's why I am open 7 days a week. I have a team, and we are very much organized to receive people all day long for different tours and for tasting, and to have a real contact with our consumer. It's a way of communication for me, as I said. It's a way of communication. I think it's really important for Bordeaux to communicate this way, because now everybody, and we are very lucky, because the wine does interest people.
Yes,
I mean,
of course
people
it does.
come to us and ask questions on how we make wine and everything. At my father's time, it was a secret. You couldn't say how you make wine. You were always hiding everything, and nobody could know. Now I'm doing exactly the contrary. I just say welcome, and I don't say everything, because in Bordeaux we do our blend, and the blend, we are very proud to our blend, and so we don't say everything, but people, we want to be accessible.
Yes.
And that's the philosophy I try to make.
Well, talking of questions, I have a question here for you from one of the journalists. Are you the first woman in your family to be involved in the wine industry?
Yes, I am.
You
I
are,
am.
yeah.
I'm the fifth generation. It went from father to son until my generation, where we are 5 girls owners. So
Okay.
I didn't choose to be the first woman, but I can say that my father was desperate.
Yes.
He was really desperate. And he really thought we were going to sell the winery, not to take care.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's just because I'm an enologist, and
Yes.
so I was really willing to run the winery, and so that's why I just took after him. But he was not. I never worked with him. You know, at this point,
Oh,
he
that's
even
interesting.
didn't want me to work with him because he was not. But it was another generation.
Yes, of course
Woman
it
in
was.
wine? No, not
Not
possible.
then, no.
So I did everything by myself. But yes.
Very interesting.
That's-
Big changes. Big changes.
that's
So,
kind
so can we taste the Duc Taillon? So again, the 2012. And I have a question from the press too. Technical question. Scientifically, why does a wine close and open again? Do we know, or is it a mystery?
No, it's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
We can only
So, yeah, we see it. Yeah.
yes see.
Sometimes
Yeah.
the wine is like a human. You have a good time to be open, and sometimes you are not. You don't
Yeah.
want to see everybody, and you close.
And there's no, so we don't really know what the science is. It's just one of those mysteries as
It's
the
a
wine
natural,
evolves.
yes.
Yeah.
It's a
Natural
natural
evolution.
phenomenon.
It's
Yeah.
sort of a natural phenomenon. We say
Yes.
it's a maladie de la bouteille, you know, the sick of the bottle. Sort of at the beginning,
Bottle
they
shock,
Yes,
we
but
call
it's-
it.
it's
Bottle
sort
shock
of-
at the beginning.
Sort
Yeah.
of a cycle in the wine. Yes, we can only
You just have to watch
see-
it. There's
yeah,
nothing you
yes,
can do.
yes.
Well, it's nice
And,
that there's a bit
and the
of
best
mystery.
thing is to have one case, and so you
Yes.
taste one bottle. Well, you have two cases. You have one to taste every 6 months or year, and when it's at the top, then you can open the 12 other bottles.
Open. That's why we sell wine in cases of 12, right? So you've got 6 to 12 years worth of samples to try. That's a good idea. That's a very
It
good
is true
idea.
that it's always an affair to know if it's the right time, if the wine can wait, or if it's too early, or.
And I think for consumers that's difficult. And I think that's why the Crus Bourgeois are quite interesting, because you do tend to make wines in the Crus Bourgeois sector that are more accessible earlier than perhaps we think about for some of the Bordeaux left bank wines. Because I think it can be difficult for consumers to know when is the right
Yeah,
time. If
yeah.
you get obsessed with when is the right time, you're never going to open a bottle, are you? So that's
Yes,
quite
but
difficult.
you can just call
Experiment.
the property and to send an email, and I think everybody
Well, that's
will
good to
be-
know. So you can contact the property,
Yes.
look on the website, ask them when they think the wine that you have in your cellar is ready for drinking.
Yes.
Good advice. Very good advice.
People do that often.
Do they? You get
Yeah,
people?
yeah. We
that's-
get questions like that, and I mean,
Or they call us to say last Sunday I opened the bottles of maybe 1922, and they say
wow.
oh, it's perfect, fantastic, fabulous. Or sometimes I am a little bit disappointed. Then stay.
Okay. But it's nice for you to have that feedback.
Yes, of course,
that
it's news
connection
from
with the
our
customer.
wine, and it's very interesting to
Yeah,
know that,
that's-
because we are winemaker, but we don't open a bottle each day for each lunch and
vintage,
each
yeah.
vintage. Then it's very interesting to
To
have
see
this
that notion
this
of
news.
evolution. Oh, that is interesting. That is interesting. Armel, let's taste your wine.
Yeah, I wanted to say too that it's true that comparing to the generation before, we work much more on fruitiness, and
Yes.
so
Yeah.
we make people, as a Crus Bourgeois, we make people, not people, but wine which are more accessible and more easy going and easier to drink.
Yeah.
It mustn't be a headache for the people when they open the bottle and to say at what temperature, which, and everything.
that's
We are evaluating on that point. Huh? So
It's all about the pleasure. It's
yeah,
all
there
about
is the
pleasure in
top,
bottle.
but most of the time we begin to know that, you know, even if you are not at the top, you have a certain lengths to drink wine.
Yeah, you've got the bigger window of
Yes,
opportunity.
and then it depends of your taste, because you have got some people who like strong and powerful wine, and you have other people who like wine which are already very mild, and everything. So you know, you never know. The point of the best is not the same from a consumer
Yes,
to
from
another.
one person to another, the tastes differ. And I think that's also what's quite interesting with the styles of wine that we're going to see here together. You've got different appellations, and each appellation has a certain characteristic, doesn't it? If we say the further north you go in the Médoc, the stronger, the more powerful the wines become. So that's quite interesting. I've got another question for Armelle here. When you took over, so as a woman winemaker, when you started, and this is actually an open question to all of you, all of the girls. Sorry, Pierre. Did you feel, or do you feel as a woman, that you have to prove yourself more than a man would, or did you when you started out?
Many years ago, yes, as Armelle told, when you don't work with your father, but I have the opportunity. I don't know if it's a good word, opportunity, but I have to work with my father, and I have to prove, yes, that I am able to do a good wine. But now for the new generation, no, there is no difference between
I think,
a female or a man.
I think at the beginning, as you say, 20 years ago, it was a phenomenon.
There is a big difference from 20 years ago and from now.
And now,
of course,
you see women in
the revolution of the mentality.
That's quite interesting.
You still now, I think when you're a woman in wine, people are still, and this is why there is a question, people are still kind of sort of surprised, and you always have to be very confident and to have competence.
Competence.
To be competent in your business. You know, a woman has to be, when it's in the wine business, has to be competent. And when you are, then there is no problem.
Then you can relax.
But they always look if you
all
are.
Business.
Women, business.
Yes, when it's normally
women have to be good at that.
Don't have to be competent.
It goes.
Perhaps you're less, perhaps challenged less.
It's not focused the same. It's not focused the same.
I understand, but beside the joke, making wine is always a big challenge.
Yes, of course it is.
It's understanding vineyards. It's a lot of things. You might be right about the fact you being a woman, and I can feel like that. But still, it's still a challenge for me. It is a big challenge, and I'm stressed. We're all stressed and not confident on the way we're going to do things right. You know, so.
It's a learn. You always need to learn the terroir, the vineyard you have, because the nature you have, and then even if you are a woman or a man, it is true that you have to learn about your terroir.
The challenges are the same. It's the perception that perhaps is different. But I don't. That is evolving, I think, enormously. Let's taste.
Let's taste. Yes, let's taste. Sorry. So for me, my philosophy is to try to make, as I said, a wine which is quite accessible. So I have more Merlot than my wine is based on Merlot grape. I have 70% of Merlot, so I try to work on the fruitiness, the charm, the balance, and a sort of the Merlot grape gives this style, a kind of round, a wine which is quite round, and this is a style that my terroir give me, and so because you can only adapt to the terroir that you have. But then after I'm very concentrate on the fruitiness and on the balance. That's the most important. Even if the year is different from a year to another, 2012 is exactly different from 2013 because of the climate and everything, I concentrate in the balance of the wine.
That's very interesting. And I think it's quite interesting too, because for a lot of people, when they think about Bordeaux, they think about Cabernet-driven wines, particularly in the Médoc, which is the left bank peninsula of Bordeaux, so they think about Cabernet-driven wines. So it's interesting that both of you so far, excuse me, have talked about fruitiness, fruit forward, the influence of Merlot. Very interesting. Perhaps not the perception that people necessarily have of the wines of the left bank and the Médoc of Bordeaux.
Because the history said that at a certain time, the Médoc used to be only, it was decided that Médoc was Cabernet Sauvignon. And then we got adapted more to the terroir.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to Listrac. So the appellation of Listrac. So Listrac, again, moving a little bit further north from where Armelle is and over onto the western side of the appellation. And Natalie, you two are involved in wine tourism, but in hospitality. So you have a bed and breakfast at the chateau.
Yeah, we have a bed and breakfast for many years. My mother began the first bed and breakfast in the Médoc. It was in the late 70s, and we still have the bed and breakfast. We've got 5 bedrooms, so just very small bed and breakfast, and we focus on the personal welcome with the family. It's always the family. It's a family business, the Château Cap-Léon-Vérin, so we are always welcoming our guests.
People, and I think that's very special to be able to stay, especially if you're not from the region, to be able to actually stay in a chateau, in a vineyard, is really quite special. And it's quite interesting that it was your mother, again, taking this innovation, very innovative.
It's still my parents' house,
Yeah.
because I'm running this vineyard with my brother today. It's been in the family for 6 generations already.
Wow.
So the bed and breakfast is part of the house and the winery all together.
Very interesting. And I think that's very typical of Crus Bourgeois, the fact that they're family properties, for the vast majority, family-driven, family-owned properties, family-managed properties, and all his historic properties, as you say, being in one family for such a long time is quite extraordinary to be able to keep that together. So let's taste Cap-Léon-Vérin. How do I say it? Vérin? Cap-Léon-Vérin.
Cap-Léon-Vérin.
So again, 2012, all the vintages that we're going to try together are the 2012 vintage.
So as Listrac is one of the smallest appellation in the Médoc, it's also one of the most atypic, as we've got more Merlot than normally all the Médoc, and we love the Merlot. Today we are about 55 to 60% of Merlot, but I remember when my grandfather was making the wine, we had nearly 90% of Merlot. So
you've got that tradition.
Yeah,
that
tradition.
of Merlot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, Listrac is considered a slightly cooler terroir, isn't it?
Cooler.
So better suited
also
to
later
Merlot.
for harvest.
Yeah.
We try to make wine that can age, also accessible, like my neighbors said previously. But we also try to have wine that can age a little bit, especially in Listrac. We think that our wines are quite well to drink after 4, 5, 6 years in the cellar after the bottling. We focus on the freshness, on the fruity character, and also on the tannin. We like to have a nice structure, but at the same time, what we can find in the Cap-Léon-Vérin, it's the velvet side.
I've got a question for you about the hospitality at the chateau, Airbnb. Interested to know if Airbnb has changed the business for you. Is it something you do? No? So people come to you, is it word of mouth? How do they find you? How do they decide to come and stay?
On our website today, but it's been a long time, and we've got a lot of foreign people coming historically from the US, from a lot of Canadian people, and today from Asia, and also, of course, a lot of French people.
I did hear that there's a chateau, there's a Crus Bourgeois that is available on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did the first one, the first vineyard, or the first, because the whole chateau is available on Airbnb.
And everybody is, oh, the French, we are, wow.
How exciting. Yeah, there you go. See? Airbnb comes to the Médoc.
Why wouldn't do the same?
Super. So we'd like to move to Moulis, to Château La Garrigue. So thank you, Pierre, for being brave enough to join us, all these women, this evening. Yeah, you're very brave. So talk to us a little bit about the history of your property, because it was your mother that sort of created this, the vineyard, huh?
Yeah, it was my mother that took the challenge to create or recreate basically our vineyards. Actually, today we have 3 different terroirs, one Moulis and a little bit south of it. But basically, my mother that had a small experience in the winery took the challenge to recreate Chateau Paloumeil and Chateau Lagarigue in 1990, basically, because it was a Cru Bourgeois back in the beginning of the 20th century, and with the vineyard crisis, it was erased, and we replanted, reconstruct a cellar. There was no cellar anymore, and we're here again 25 years ago.
25 years later, you're still you're producing wine. Also, you have a very strong marketing presence on the internet.
Yep.
People can buy your wine online.
Yeah. Like the other said, I mean, we need to interact with our clients. We need to interact with our clients, people that are tasting our wine. So basically, the social networks or the website are tools that we are using. We have a website that people can buy wines, but we also use other social networks, of course, Facebook or even TripAdvisor, because people
can rate the visit on TripAdvisor when they come and visit the property.
Yeah, of course.
Do you on TripAdvisor
and this
as well?
is important for us because
That's
it's
very
basically also a way to have an honest comment.
Yeah.
And we use it a
feedback,
lot.
yeah.
So we do use all those tools to either to communicate and to speak with our clients. But this is something we were talking about, the fact that people could call us. But last time there was a lawyer from New York, and he actually sent us an email on our website saying, "I tasted your wine in New York, and I'm going in the south of France in 4 months. Can I buy some?" This is something maybe 10 years ago it would have been complicated.
Yes,
I'm not saying it would have been impossible, but here in one click,
he can find you. He can find you, and he can find the wine. So that
and
is
this
very
is something
exciting.
that wouldn't have been possible
before. Yeah.
5 or 10 years ago.
And do you think this direct contact with the client changes the way you make the wine? Does it change your approach to the wine? Is the feedback?
I don't know if it changed the way we do make wine. I mean, we changed the way we make wine because, like life, we're changing.
Yes.
I mean, but I don't know if it changed the way we make wines, but it helped us to make wines also, because I tell you, it's always a big challenge to make wine and receive congratulations or sometimes critics. Helps. I don't know if it makes the wine changing, but it helps. And it's really important.
Helps you to make a wine that consumers
and sometimes
want to buy,
when you lose
guess,
confidence because, I don't know, the weather is not that easy and you don't know if you took the good decisions. Well, knowing that somebody is saying, "I love your wine, what you do is," I mean, I opened a wine, it's been 10 years ago, I mean, I loved it. It's important. I mean, like everybody else, I guess, but for us, and we're making that for that.
Yes, that
We
does.
just evaluate. We evaluate a little bit according to what people tell to us.
And that's important to think that you're listening to the marketplace, because it's perhaps not a perception that people necessarily have about a traditional winemaking area. But it shows that the product does evolve as a function of the market. I've got a couple of questions for you, Pierre.
Yep.
Talking about your mother recreating the property and working with your mother, so very much in a family environment. The question is...
Is it difficult?
Yeah. No, but you could answer that question. That was
No.
Okay, he's saying nothing about that. No, what are the strengths or skills that you think somebody like your mother or women in general bring to an industry like wine?
It's difficult because I need to speak about my mother, and I love her.
And she might be listening, yeah?
And she might be listening, so I should be very careful. I think I don't like speaking. I mean, I don't like saying that women and men are different. But still, to do what my mother has been doing, I think being a woman might help us, because she might help her, because with the challenge, you have to be very modest. You have to be very focused. And maybe this modesty, maybe the fact that, you know, men are a little bit more confident, but at the same time they think everything is easy or that should be the way. And maybe my mother going step by step, trying to not knowing everything, trying to share or to have people helping her. That maybe it made it
a
possible.
thing that. And another question for you is, as a younger person coming into the wine industry, and we have another, your neighbour is also a younger generation. What are the challenges that you find as a younger person? Is the wine industry more open to young people now than it was previously?
Well, every generation has to come at some point.
Yes.
So,
but younger people seem to have more positions of responsibility now than they perhaps did previously.
They're retiring and they're going in vacation, but our parents are going for vacations. But no, I think the big challenge, and it's understanding even more the environment. I think one of the things that our new generation have to understand that we are interact with our environment, and this is the big challenge. It's a difficult issue, and I think this is the next 10 years.
Sort of the ecological questions.
And I think the last 30 years have been the enological years.
So the winemaking.
I think the next, I don't know if 20 years is a little bit arrogant, but the next 10 years will be in the vineyard.
Yeah, all about
interacting with the environment
vineyard,
and understanding the way we do and things are interacting.
This notion. Another question as well to all of you, really. You all seem to speak very good English. That's so well done. That's the comment that we're getting here. Do you think this is important? Is this coming back to this notion of communication? I suppose is being able to speak English important for you in the wine world?
Yes.
Very much, yeah.
In order to share our passion for the wine, and it's necessary to speak, to explain, to receive the critics or the idea about the wine. It's important in this. Yes.
And to communicate in English, you communicate with the whole world.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's a big advantage, isn't it? That's a big advantage.
That's the most important, huh?
Yeah.
Everybody can
understand English.
And it's a difference with the new generation, because I remember one more time my father, he speaks French, then the other people has to speak French.
Yes.
I don't want to speak English or something like that. But now,
that's a big change. And again, you say that is very much part of the new generation. Pierre, should we taste your wine? I think so. So La Garrigue, Moulis, and again the 2014 vintage.
Moulis is
12. Pardon, 12. Sorry.
It is 12. Huh?
12. It is 12. Yes.
All of us. Moulis La Garrigue is a very tiny vineyard because it's only 3 hectares, so it's around 6 acres.
Yeah, minuscule.
6 acres basically. Two particularity basically. One on the soil and the environment. It's clay and lime and clay soils, and with a lot of woods around. So things are interacting, and that makes the specificity of this appellation and this vineyard. Second thing is we have a big proportion of Petit Verdot. The proportion of Merlot here is a little bit lower than my neighbors. It's around 40% or something. And for the rest is Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot, which is a local, smaller cepage variety that gives a little bit of spicy, a little bit of fruit, a little bit power, but it needs to be blended on the minority. It cannot go for 50% Petit Verdot. It's very rare. We usually go from 5 to 15% basically.
Yeah. There seems to be in recent years a return in the popularity of Petit Verdot. It's coming back.
Well, for 2 reasons. I mean, for one big reason is that before Petit Verdot, from the word, it means Petit Vert, which is green.
Yes.
And that's the problem. It's a variety that we had big difficulties to grow, and it was basically green even in November, so it wouldn't grow. So, but lately there's been some research and some selection basically, and now we are able to harvest it even before Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
It's a big change.
now we are discovering it again because we are able to grow it. Which
And
was
so what does it bring, what do you feel it brings to the wine in the blend?
Usually it brings spice, powerful, and a little bit of freshness because
Yes,
it's a quite acid.
Nice
It's a quite
acidity.
acid variety. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. It gives a little bit of freshness. It's a strange thing because it adds a lot of things. It's also a little bit fresh. It gives power. It has a lot of power. It gives color usually, but at the same time, so those could be a little bit antagonist, I think, but that's
Complementary. I think.
complementary.
Complementary, rather than antagonistic. It's very interesting because the notion of elegance, complexity, fruit, freshness, and very much descriptors that are coming back when you're talking about your wines.
Yeah.
So is this sort of the typical profile that you would expect from a Crus Bourgeois? Does that correspond to what people can expect?
I think so, but I think also there's that doesn't mean anything to have a wine that is not drinkable for 20 years and becomes nice after 20 years. That just doesn't make sense. Usually, it could close. It has its own history, but usually, good vintage are drinkable even quite rapidly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we should.
Yes.
We can last them, but there's no
But
way.
they're approachable early. Yeah.
We have to close them for 20 years, and studently
which
it
isn't-
arrives and
which
it's
is not.
perfect. That just doesn't make sense.
It's very interesting, and also it's quite interesting. We talked about value for money. This notion of value for money. The wines that we're tasting are around about between the $16 to $40, depending on the vintage, price point. And just so as you know, we will be sending out exact prices of the wines where they're available in the US. So thank you very much, Pierre. So we're going to go to Margot now. Margot, considered by many to be the most feminine of all the left bank appellations, so tradition has it. And Melanie, you're the winemaker, and very much represent what we were saying earlier, the younger generation of winemakers. Tell us a little bit about your role within Bellevue de Taillac.
So in Bellevue de Taillac, I'm running the winery, so I'm taking care of the vineyard, and also I'm the winemaker. So it's quite a small property. It's about 4 hectares, so it's not very big, but we have a bit of work over there, so it's quite interesting.
Quite interesting. And how long have you been involved in the property?
My family bought the property 3 years ago to Monsieur Jean-Luc Tunevin, which is a winemaker in Saint-Émilion area. And since then, I'm taking care of the winery, and I'm working in partnership with my parents, who are running wineries in the Médoc appellation.
Okay, so this is very much, the Margot property is very much your baby.
Yes, it is, since 3 years.
Now, we've talked about the different appellations. How would you, we talked about Margot being the feminine appellation, how would you describe what the profile you're trying to bring to Bellevue de Taillac? What is the typicity?
In Bellevue de Taillac, I'm trying to make, as Magali said, the wine I like. So I'm trying to produce a wine which is quite fruity, but with also a bit of power, but quite well balanced. And I'm happy when someone is drinking my wine and is just saying, "I would like another glass."
That's the best, yeah.
So
that's the best compliment.
I think so.
So can we try the wine, Melanie?
Yes.
Can we, try the wine together? So again, 2014, Bellevue de Taillac.
So it's 2012. So it's also a Merlot majority in this wine. I think it's quite similar for
there's a theme
all the previous wine. So it's quite fruity. I think we can drink it now if we like young wine, but we can also wait for 10 years. It's depending on our proper feelings with wine.
We haven't talked about food and wine matching, and I know it's something that a lot of people are interested in. Do you feel that your wines are open to lots of different food and wine matching, or do you have preferred dishes you like to serve them with?
I think that wine can match easily with meat or cheese, but it's much like the feeling we have with the food, I think in a personal way. For instance, I like red wine with chocolate, but some people do not, so it's quite depending, but I think like on red meat particularly, it's quite nice.
That's quite nice. I've got a question for you, Melanie, here. It says, do you feel as a younger winemaker, is there a community of young winemakers? Is there a supportive group, perhaps, that you've studied with? Or?
Yes, we are exchanging with some friends. We are also winemaker, a female winemaker, but also with men or things like that. I think like young women, we are exchanging, but much more like friends than very supportive work group.
Okay,
so.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And did you study enology here in Bordeaux, or did you study winemaking here in Bordeaux?
No, I have a bit special studying. I'm first a pharmacist, and then I changed my mind after all this year, and I make agricultural engineering. And so I went in a Champagne area to learn how to make wine.
In Champagne, and so you bought. Oh, that's
a bit
very
different.
interesting. Yeah, that's very well. It gives you a much broader outlook. Yes. And that's how interesting. That's fantastic. Another question here. When you're talking to people of your own generation, young people in particular, what is the perception of Bordeaux? Do we have an idea what the perception of Bordeaux is for people who don't necessarily live in the area when you're talking to a younger generation?
Younger generation in general, I think.
Yes.
I think that people think that we are very lucky, and I think we are. And most of the time I have the feeling that people do not really realize what is our job, but they are very happy when we can explain to them what we are really doing. It's just not like tasting one all day. We also work a little bit.
I think that comes back to the wine tourism thing too. Yes. When you visit chateaus, when you take people who enjoy wine but don't know much about it, to actually see the process, I think is really interesting for people, to see how much people have no idea. I think
there is a lot of works between the grapes from the earth until we arrive to the glass.
Yes. It's so surprising, all the steps to build the wine, and all the people working around to
when
build
when you just take a bottle, you don't really think about that. So
absolutely.
I think the notion of wine tourism and welcoming people into the vineyard really reinforces, I think, the process and the passion behind the process too.
And sometimes the image of Bordeaux is very often the stars and some inaccessible wine, which are very expensive and not available for young people and everything. And this is why for us it's very important to have this tourist business in order to show that there are not only the stars, but there are some people who make the job, and it's a real
very hands-on.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very interesting.
I totally agree with Armel. I totally agree with you, because I have the problem, because maybe after.
No, go. No.
Because I am lucky, I am on Pauillac appellation, and when people speak about Pauillac, they immediately think about Latour, Mouton Rothschild, Pontet-Canet, or Lafite, and they say, "Oh no, it's too expensive for me. I can't afford that." And now with the new technology, internet, Twitter, and so on, they realize that there is a small property who works very hard to produce a best quality wine, and they are a good value, a good price, and they can drink Pauillac.
Yes.
Pauillac is not only Grand Cru Classé.
Yeah, so it's this notion of accessibility.
Exactly.
Which is very much one of the philosophies behind the Cru Bourgeois.
And that's why Cru Bourgeois is very important, because for such long time, when people think about Bordeaux, I remember when I visit, it's Vinexpo Tokyo, it was in 2001, and when I arrived there, I'm coming from Bordeaux. They, "Oh, no, we don't want to drink Bordeaux, it's too expensive." And because they don't realize that there is not only classified growth, there is Cru Bourgeois, and we make a very good value wine.
Yeah. It comes back to this notion of Cru Bourgeois. You obviously are all very engaged with it, and you obviously believe in it. do you think the notion of being a Crus Bourgeois, does it work to vehicle? I mean, is it easy to communicate about Crus Bourgeois? Do people know what Crus Bourgeois is when you talk about it?
Maybe Armel?
No, it's easier, yes, because already the people, in order to know, they know what Bordeaux is.
Yeah.
The Médoc region is not very easy for them. So what we try, we work very hard on this label and this sign of Crus Bourgeois in order them to be, to know if we have this sign of the label, it means that the quality has been controlled.
Yes.
You know? So it's sort of security for the consumer.
And
more
on
than
that thought,
you know?
the cameraman's going to help me. But I was going to talk about the traceability. I don't know, can we zoom in?
On the side.
Can we zoom into that? Can you see that? Sorry, you can just show. But I mean, if you look on the bottle at home, perhaps you can see it there a bit better. You'll be able to, you can see this label. So this label is only given to the chateaux when they qualify to become a Crus Bourgeois. So if you have to declare your harvest, so the number of bottles that qualify, you will get exactly the number of labels that correspond to the Crus Bourgeois. And I think that is the traceability, and that is the guarantee of quality. So all of these bottles, and if you look at the bottles that you've had, that you have at home, you'll be able to see this label on the bottle, which will be very much the guarantee that we were talking about. I've upset the cameraman now.
So it is true. Nowadays, maybe it doesn't tell so many things, but we work hard on this, and we build this family, we build this Crus Bourgeois. So that's for the future too.
Yeah, to build that notoriety. Although it's very interesting because it's a very historical mention. I mean, the notion of bourgeois goes back to the Middle Ages. The first Crus Bourgeois were in the 1930s, and then you've reinvented yourselves now since 2008. Was it the first
because we
one?
don't want to become a mommy, we want to be in life from day to another, and that's important to be actual.
It's, which I think is wonderful. And again, it's not necessarily the image that one has, talking about the image that people had of Bordeaux being very expensive. It just shows this notion of dynamism and innovation that's behind
the city
this group.
was a little bit like that before, a little bit like that. It was a little bit closed, it was grey, a little bit blackish, and now for the last 10 years, it's been completely...
Oh, it's completely renovated and changed. Yes, it has.
And I think there's a big parallel between us and Bordeaux. Bordeaux is reinventing itself based on its roots, but the architecture is amazing, and you can see it now, which before was a little bit difficult.
I agree, and I think that dynamism is in the vineyard as well. The city is very dynamic and changing, and you see that dynamism in the vineyard, especially with younger generation of winemakers, perhaps a feminine influence, but more new techniques being introduced, and this question of challenging yourself. I mean, to get the appellation, you have to challenge yourself every year, and on top of that, you have this challenge of becoming a Crus Bourgeois as well. So it's very interesting.
For French, very traditional old Europe, it's quite a performance to always
to change. Yes, it is.
But at the same time, the only thing that we cannot forget, for the rest, we have to reinvent ourselves. The only thing we cannot reinvent is the terroir.
The terroir, the soil,
I know it
the
looks
origin.
stupid, but the only thing, and no, but it's not about history. It's about nature. It's about nature, and this is something we cannot move with it. We can play with it. We can, like clay, basically. We can try to modelize a little bit differently, but the only thing that is traditional here is
the place. It's all about the place. It's all about place. We're going to come back to Pascal, because another thing. So you're in Pauillac, and
I am a lucky girl.
Yes, you are a lucky girl. You are a lucky girl. You're all pretty lucky from where I'm sitting, but
lucky. I am not sure of that after.
You were one of the founding members of Eleanor, the Eleanor of wine. Could you just explain to us a little bit about that?
It's a female association which is created by Françoise de Wil, the owner of Chateau Ripaud in Saint-Émilion, in 1994, 22 years ago. I know, I am not a dinosaur, I am an historic member. It sounds better like that. And at this moment, 20 years ago, it's not very often to find feminine person in wine business. And at this moment, she has the idea to prove that woman works in wine and works good.
So now how many members do you have in the association?
We are 12, 6 on the left bank and 6 on the right bank.
Right bank.
Yeah.
And how do you work together? Do you exchange technical information? Do you promote the wines together?
We promote the wines together.
Yeah. So you travel as a
A few
group.
days ago, we were in Vinexpo, Hong Kong. We make a pro wine in Düsseldorf and Vinexpo, Bordeaux, of course.
Okay, so you taste each other's wines and
Yes,
present
yes.
the
And we
wines
propose all the different appellations of Bordeaux. Sauterne, Margaux, Saint-Émilion, Pomerol, Pauillac, Entre-deux-Mers.
And when people come, I mean, 20 years ago it was new, as you said, it was quite unusual. Were people surprised that there was an organisation of women winemakers?
Yes, because we're the first organisation in France,
very interesting,
and I think in the world. Maybe. I am not sure of that, but I think we are one of the first, yes.
Well, congratulations, you were obviously
Thank you, but I was not alone, you know.
It was several of you doing it. So let's taste your wine. We haven't tasted the Pauillac yet.
Okay.
Talk us a little
I
bit
have
through
tasted
this bit.
before, you know.
That's okay, quite right.
Then Château Fontbadet, it's a family estate. I am the fourth generation and the first female winemaker.
Winemaker as well, so the
Okay,
same
as you.
challenges.
Then Château Fontbadet, we have a very old vineyard. It's between 50 to 60 years old. And we have the smallest produce in Pauillac, sorry. And variety grapes, we are classic. We have 60% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 15 of Cabernet Franc, 20 of Merlot only, and 5 Petit Verdot and Malbec. For the same reason as you, to make a little spicy and freshness. And this vintage is now, to my mind, very good to drink. It's very open and very pleasant. And if I have an advice, is to drink that not only on meat or chicken or something like that, but on fresh pasta with truffle, fresh truffle, like this.
Sounds
and
delicious.
you are in the paradise.
Perfect. Well, we'll bear that in mind. So those of you that are home, you've got to put the pan on, cook the pasta, get the truffle out, because I'm sure you've got truffles at home. We're going to go right further north to Saint-Estèphe, to Château Lahaye, Violaine, who you're involved more in the marketing side
Yes,
of the
absolutely.
wine.
Absolutely. I just came 1 year ago. I have this opportunity, this great chance, in fact, very lucky for me, and to join this property, which is one of the oldest property in Médoc. It has been established on the 16th century, and the vineyards were already there, has been settled on the 16th century. So it's very specific for this property, and what is specific as well, that this chateau belongs to the same family during 3 centuries until the beginning of the 20th, and today it belongs to Mr. Cardon since 2009, and he make the property growing up. Today we have 20 hectares on vineyards, so some plots are historic just on front of the property, and other plots all around the Saint-Estèphe appellation. And this vintage 2012 that we're going to taste is the first harvest on the area of Mr. Cardon, and it's typical Saint-Estèphe, but it's a wine that we want to make really enjoyable as possible. We want to that people, that consumer want to enjoy it just straight away, even if it's a wine supposed to be kept into cellar for 10 or 15 years around, and so we have moved the way to build this wine to be very elegant, and yes, really enjoy.
I think that's very interesting for Saint-Estèphe, because Saint-Estèphe traditionally for many people was perceived as a wine that was quite tannic and quite powerful and strong. You had to keep it for a long time. And I'm hearing from all of you this notion of producing wines that are elegant, fresh, fruit-forward, easy to drink, but still have that aging potential.
Absolutely.
And I think it's exciting that you can play, as you say, somebody said earlier about depending on what the consumer wants. Some people like their wines young, some people like them older. So to have that technical ability to make wines that are approachable.
We didn't talk about that, but it goes to with the way of drinking wine. You know, in France we drink wine with food,
yes.
but in some countries you drink wine on your own, and when you drink the wine on its own, it has to be fruity and more easygoing because the food won't balance the wine. So that's important too to be aware for us to be aware of that.
I've got a question here for you as well. For Pascal, I think it was because you talked about pasta. The question was, what do you drink when you're not drinking Bordeaux? Actually, you could all answer that.
Not Pauillac or not Bordeaux?
Not Bordeaux. It says, what do you drink when you don't drink Bordeaux?
I don't drink a lot of wine except of Bordeaux. But
why would
I
you? You live
appreciate
above the
white
sweet
wine
shop,
from Australia.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Not the red wine, but white wine
white
from
from
Australia,
Australia.
yes.
That's
For the
very
freshness and during summertime, I appreciate that.
There's so many wines.
There are so many wines.
In France
so
or
many wines.
elsewhere.
Yes.
And there's so
very
many
true.
in France, but also in all over the world. New country, old countries. So
It's a very exciting business to work in, isn't it? Because of that diversity.
and it's always an adventure, and it's crossing between culture and agriculture. So every time we go on the country and we visit a winery and we are wine producers, it's always an exchange. It's very, it's a nice thing to do for us.
And
Good.
it's very interesting to get to know different type of grape, different countries, different climates.
And does it affect your philosophy of winemaking? Do you think when you taste wines and you go to wine fairs and you see winemakers from different countries and regions, does it affect?
It does.
It makes you question what you're doing, perhaps? Yeah, it's interesting because there's a question here asking about the marketing of Bordeaux wines. Has the marketing of Bordeaux wines changed over the last years now that other wine regions are more popular? The New World is growing more. Has it changed how you present your wines, how you market your
A
wines?
few years ago, I tried to change our labels because sometimes it seems to be a little bit old-fashioned. Then I try with a new graphist, and all my consumers say, no, we prefer this kind, very classic, very typical, and I can continue with this label.
Have you seen a change in the way you market?
For me, to my opinion, I think yes, very much. And for example, this is why we have to communicate much more than before. The Spanish people, Italian people, they are very much on the market and they are very much innovating on the label. And for us, French, we have to keep our tradition, as Pascal says, because people don't want us to change too much. But beside our bottle, we have to show that even if we are traditional, we move and we can show different things. We must use the tradition to show that we are modern in our mind and our way of communication.
It's quite a challenge, isn't it? It's quite a challenge to have that balance between tradition and
It's
modernity.
not old-fashioned, no. It's finished. This time of Bordeaux bashing and say, no, we don't want. We have to modernize something. We open our property. We make some evolution on the label. We keep our deep roots in the wine business here. But we have to keep the traditional way of Bordeaux, but on the good size of Bordeaux, the traditional thing.
Yeah, I think, I think that the difference between maybe Italian or Spanish wines, that in fact in Bordeaux is very historic, and we have the story of our country of wine, and this is the base, and our consumer want to keep that, and it's up to us to work about the tourism and to open our property to make visitors come to enter our property and to discover what is going on inside. And that's the way we are going to make the change, in fact, and not on the opposite from the labeling and so on. So
that's interesting. Now, it's been drawn to my attention that we haven't tasted your wine yet, Santé Steph. So
yes,
we forget that we are here. We are here to be tasted. Yeah, no. People are paying attention to what's going on.
So. So you can smell the woody on this wine, which has been it's a blending of 50-50 Merlot Cabernet. The Cabernet Sauvignon has been vinificated with Petit Verdot as well. This is typical of our plots today. We have 50-50 Merlot Cabernet and some small part of Petit Verdot and Malbec as well. And what is very specific on this harvest, as we want to build a wine very enjoyable as soon as possible, we have pushed to pick up the grapes, the most latest as possible. So we have a lot of aromas into the fruits. So as we change the way to build the wine as well, on this harvest we have 100% of new oak barrels as well. We are all working with 5 different barrel makers to build this wine since 2012. After we're changing 30% of our barrels each year, but on this harvest is under 100%. So it changed as well the
style of the wine,
the aromas of the structure of the wine. And so yes, it's a wine really elegant with black fruit aromas, and as with the barrels, you have a lot of yes, very woody aromas and
toasty aromas and
yes.
Oaky aromas. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Question here about the US market. All your wines are available on the US market, I think. Are you aware within America whereabouts your wines are sold? What areas the wines sell better in? Do you have a notion of, I mean, East Coast, West Coast?
I haven't understood the question.
Which parts of America?
Oh,
yeah, they're everywhere. They're available everywhere.
It depends. I mean, at least for us.
For sure.
The East Coast is more, is a bigger market.
For
Yeah.
sure. And some are certain in Miami and some
Big
California.
cities, in some
But basically, the East Coast.
East Coast is the leading market for you. Yeah. So if you're listening in the West Coast, we need to get these wines better known then, if they're less available. And that's interesting. And there was one last question coming back to this women in wine theme. Would any of you have any advice for a young woman that wanted to start working in the wine industry? Any pearls of wisdom?
Move forward.
Yeah, go
Don't
for it.
ask itself question. Go.
Yeah, it's exactly what an old winemaker told me when I was about to choose my career, because I'm not from a wine family. Just I liked it, and I saw my parents discussing evenings with some of a friend about wine, and I just saw the light in their eyes, and I said, this is what I want to do, to make people feel happy. And I asked an old winemaker, is it possible for a woman to do that job? And he just told me, if you like it, go ahead.
Live your passion.
Yeah,
Yes.
live your passion. That's a very.
But I hope that in 2016, the question. I hope it is not relevant question.
No, I agree.
I understand that it was asked, but I hope that today. I'm saying 25 years ago that was true, but I hope that today, my daughter or whatever would have any question on whether it could go in the winemaking or not. If because that would be a shame if today a woman should say, "Should I go? I mean, is it for me or not?"
Yeah. It's very interesting, and I think now you're the perfect example, all of you. when you go into the cellars in Bordeaux now, it isn't unusual to find a woman in the wine cellar. It isn't unusual to find a woman owner. It isn't unusual to find a woman in the winemaker. Yeah, so it's
any part of
any part. Yeah, so it's very much, and I think it's emblematic of what's happening in the wine world. It's emblematic of what's happening in Bordeaux in particular. Super. Well, thank you all very much. It's been lovely. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found, there's been lots of questions, so I hope you found that interesting and we've answered some of the questions. And I hope in particular that you've enjoyed the wines. That's the main thing. You've discovered a little bit more about Crus Bourgeois. You can visit the Crus Bourgeois website. The other thing that that little label does that I was showing you is you can use it as a QR code to find out more about the wines. All the wines that are qualified as Crus Bourgeois, there's profiles of them on the website, so it's easy to contact the chateaus to learn more. And as you've heard, they're very happy to have your news and for you to contact them and to ask questions. So that's great. Yeah, they obviously love the feedback. So bring on the feedback, and then of course this year, 2016. So in September 2016. The next Crus Bourgeois classification will be announced, which will be for the 2014 vintage. So watch this space in September. In the meantime, enjoy the vintages that we have currently. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. And thank you all for coming along.
Thank you.
Cheers. Good health. Good health.